Different.
They were more crystal in structure and metallic looking, really. The ones I saw, and I mean, I'm sure they brought, I assumed that what I saw was typical of most of what they brought back, but I'm sure they brought back a variety of some that looked different than what I saw too.
But I grew up reading science fiction and
me too.
future fact and stuff in the 50s, back in the pulp days in the 60s, and I want to tell you, the future didn't happen the way we planned it.
Right. Okay. Well, now,
we're still waiting.
Do you know this, that Matt Howard has a Matt Howard believes that we went to the moon, but then he thinks that when they got back that their pictures weren't good, and so that they staged it.
Well, that's possible. I mean,
I believe that. I believe that with the photographs.
They claim they left the cameras up there. You know what a Hasselblad is?
Yeah, I know what a Hasselblad is. Yeah.
Well, would you leave one?
No.
See?
No.
I took it all the way to the moon.
But
But
if
So they left
I'd
the
bring
cameras
it
there?
back.
But if it was extra weight and
Did they
I
have
needed
to
to
pay
get off
for
the
it?
moon, I might.
How much does it weigh? About 3 pounds? With
Hey,
lens?
every
That
pound.
gravity difference.
Well, that
Every
can make
pound.
a big difference when it comes to fuel, I imagine.
Yeah,
Every pound
really
counts.
it would, but still, I've been a professional photographer since the late 60s, and I always wanted a Hasselblad.
I've never.
Couldn't
Yeah.
afford one. Never could afford one.
Well-
Now, of course, who wants a film camera? But,
Right, but I can shoot 2 1/4 to 3 1/4 format on my
Yeah.
Speed Graphic Junior, and it actually is more versatile
I
than
had
a
a Speed
Hasselblad.
Graphic up until about 2 years ago. I finally sold it on eBay, but I love playing with that.
The government isn't known for being real particular about what they waste.
I know, yeah.
What they leave on the moon or what they leave in the desert in Iraq or, that's how many guns they lose.
Or Vietnam, when we left Vietnam, there was a mountain of helicopters and tanks.
Oh,
and
yeah.
literally a mountain of waste that was left. So,
yeah, good old Vietnam.
Vietnam. Are you going to start telling Vietnam stories?
You there? We can tell some Vietnam stories.
Yeah, I can tell some.
If I can think of some funny ones,
tell you about the night we shot.
but I can't think of any funny ones.
The night
Tell you
shot.
about the night we shot the elephant. Now, actually, I didn't shoot the elephant. I like elephants.
Nobody would.
But I'm serious. We were up on the Cambodian border, and the French were the only ones making money out of Vietnam. The French, of course, had been a French colony. A lot of French companies still own these huge rubber plantations up there. And when a tree was hit by a shell or anything, the French would get paid damages by the Americans and by the North Vietnamese.
When a
So
rubber tree got hit?
yeah, they were double dipping, but they had these elephants they used to move logs around. And one of these elephants one night walked in front of what we called our green line, which is where all the guys were set up in case the enemy decided to drop by for tea or something. And so these guys were really bored.
Was it a mobile mission or a base?
Is a fire
base,
yeah,
fire
regular
base.
base, yeah. And LZN, as a matter of fact. And so the elephant goes strolling across in front of these really, really bored guys about 1 o'clock in the morning, and wound up with about 40,000 rounds in it. Shredded the poor old elephant. Well, everybody thought that was okay, tragic for the elephant, until the Frenchmen came up, and the army wound up paying something like $100,000 for that elephant.
Yeah.
So.
It probably ended the war.
Where
Where was it? What was it? 2 Corps? I Corps?
3 Corps.
Yeah. Yeah, it was up in I Corps up next to
Yeah,
Da Nang.
Quan Loy up in there, yeah.
Yeah, 10 foot.
I was in On K when I first went in the country, but we wound up Quan Loy, first air cav.
Yeah.
But we could always tell when there was going to be a big attack because
Everybody left.
The Frenchman would jump in his little plane and fly down to Saigon. So
That's what we could tell. When there were no
checking
people
our
in the
weapons.
village, when the people in the
Yeah.
village were all gone, something was fixing to happen.
Yeah.
And it was not going to be very, well, it would be entertaining. It's according to what kind of sense of humor you had, if you had one.
Did you find it entertaining?
That's a difficult story because most of the guys who were there, it was kind of a Zen thing. it was interesting because it was
That
so
was-
intense.
That
and
was
nuts.
that was the entertainment.
It was
that
like the
available.
most intense thing that ever happened to you in your life, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And you thought it was nuts at the time, but when you got back and wanted to go back to work driving the school bus was not too entertaining.
Right.
You know, after that kind of a level of intensity.
Yeah.
So I don't know what, it wasn't entertaining, I don't know whether I'd say.
But that was just the only entertainment that was available.
Yeah.
It was a life experience.
It was a life
But
experience.
on the other hand,
For some,
you
it
know,
was
everybody
worse.
thinks wars are full of people shooting at you.
Yeah.
Wars are about 95% boredom and 5% terror.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
I mean, most of the time, nothing is going on.
Right.
yeah,
But
we
doesn't
always-
that 5% terror make up for it?
It wakes you up, I tell you
Well,
that.
we had one little guy who really always helped us with boredom, and he must have had a little hidey hole somewhere back in the woods,
Mm-hmm.
and he had I think a 20 millimeter mortar or something like that,
Yeah.
and it was like
Every
what
now
was
and
it,
then
Charlie and the guy on MASH.
Yeah.
Every 2 or 3 days, you know, you'd see a round land way over there, and then you'd see the next round would be a little closer, and then it'd hit in a river, and you know that. But everybody's freaking out. You know, by the time he got to the 4th or 5th round, somebody was radioing him from the village
Yeah.
and spotting for him. So they were saying, "No, you lift it up a little bit." So by the time he got to us, you
You
know,
knew it.
we were all in our combat gear and he's probably spent 25 cents on those 4 mortar rounds, and we would spend $500,000 on free fire on what they call it, where they have
Free fire zone.
free fire zones, you know, and the quad 50 would open up, and you know, it was just nuts, you know.
The interesting thing about that, I was in intelligence. I knew a lot of what went on. Most of their resupplies came from North Vietnam down what was called the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which
Right.
was really trails through jungles and stuff. And these guys would walk hundreds of miles, literally carrying these supplies. The joke was these mortar rounds, they weigh 35, 40 pounds each. Guy would leave Hanoi with 2 mortar rounds, pack them down to Vietnam, walk up to where the mortar tube is. The mortarman takes rounds, pump, pump. He says, "Go get 2 more."
Now, I've heard there are no more jungles in Vietnam.
They pretty well got defoliated, yeah.
And what didn't get defoliated, they sold to the Chinese just
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah.
That's amazing, because it was a beautiful country.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed being there. When,
Yeah, I enjoyed the people. The people were beautiful.
Yeah, when people weren't shooting at me.
Yeah,
It
the ones
was
who weren't trying to kill you were real nice.
Very interesting place. We were up in the the area we were in. There was a religion which is still in Vietnam. I think they have about 5 million people or so, called Cao Dai. And the really neat thing about this religion is they don't miss a bet. Jesus, Muhammad, Victor Hugo, the French writer, Sun Yat-sen, the president of China, they're all saints in this religion. I mean,
You're probably a saint there. You probably got your,
I may be one now.
you know, they're praying for Ralph. Oh, Ralph, come back.
Ralph.
Bring us some money.
Yeah.
Bring us a...
I can hear in my headphones what you can't hear. There are aliens trying to communicate with us. You gonna play one for us? You gonna sing it?
No, we're just talking. We got
Okay.
about 30 minutes. I'll play 1 or 2 before we quit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You know what I
But,
can do.
you know, say what you want to about Vietnam. I'm glad I went. I felt it was my duty at the time, and
I did too.
unfortunately, most people in the U.S. didn't feel it was a duty, and we lost the war. I used to have a T-shirt years ago that said Saigon War Games, 2nd place.
Yeah.
But the good thing is when you see how the Soviet Union finally wound up falling, you know, I think we contributed to that. We just outspent the Soviets, and eventually they just couldn't keep up anymore.
Well, you know what?
Now we're working on
You know what?
Islam.
You know what brought the Soviet Union to their knees? The Beatles.
The Beatles.
The
yeah.
Beatles brought the Soviet. That's according to their.
The ultimate secret weapon.
John Lennon.
Huh?
Russians just today in the news were talking about starting up an arms race again.
Who? The
The
Russians.
Russians. It was, yeah.
Well,
Oh, everybody is. This
Putin's a tough bird, buddy.
yeah, but if they couldn't afford
And
it
they've got-
before, why do they think they can
They've
afford
got
it
the
now?
fastest growing
They
economy in the
got
world.
lots of oil now,
Yeah.
and we're broke.
Exactly.
And Uncle Moron, or Moron and Cheese.
That's another thing. We were supposed to have atomic cars or anti-gravity cars or something now
Yes.
instead of internal combustion engine.
Yeah.
They were talking about replacing the internal combustion engine 60 years ago. Where's my flying car?
Well, that's another thing. There was a deal made when during the Second World War we needed high-grade petroleum to run our Air Force.
Yes.
And so a deal was cut. I was told this by my father that a deal was cut with the government and the oil companies and the American car manufacturers. That the oil companies said, we will build the cracking towers necessary to create all the petroleum that you need to run the Air Force. But we want to be guaranteed that we will continue to get our money back out of the cracking towers to our investment that we make. So we want a guarantee that American automobiles will always run on internal combustion engines that use that oil. And apparently the deal was swung. That's what my father said.
Our government wouldn't do that.
No. They're not this.
You don't think
they're
that?
organized.
That's dishonest.
Well, I don't see him doing anything to bring down the amount of gasoline that cars use.
No.
Or oil prices.
See, that's what Jimmy Carter did. Jimmy Carter did put mileage requirements on cars, and then Reagan repealed it.
Yeah. But now GM is coming out with a hybrid SUV. You know, their big one, the Yukon, the big monster, they're turning into a hybrid.
Yeah, I thought that was a joke.
Where's my flying car?
Anybody can turn an SUV into a hybrid, can make a flying car
Yeah.
just like that.
I know, yeah.
Have I told you about the ellipticline steam engine?
The what now?
The ellipticline steam engine.
Okay, ellipticline steam.
Yeah, but this was something that was invented by my friend Tom Hosick in Winston-Salem.
External combustion.
External combustion.
Yes.
Exactly. And so it's not a pressurized reaction vessel
Yeah.
that creates bad pollutants. It can run off anything that creates heat and creates steam.
Right.
And it can be rather efficient. Steam is a rather efficient means. And I have seen a city bus. Tom bought a city bus and he installed an ellipticline steam engine in it, and he could open that thing up and literally burn rubber, spin the wheels on a city bus so fast that big clouds of smoke would roll off of it and fly down the road and flip it into reverse and spin rubber back the other way, and just toward, I mean, huge clouds of smoke rolling off the wheels. You don't often see a city bus do that. And
Speed, I saw it.
then
Speed
he had
went
then,
down.
then in those days they were having Senate hearings involved with alternative fuels, and Tom went to Washington and he testified in opposition to General Motors, who had testified that steam was not a viable option for transportation, and they presented efficiency studies and stuff that were done during the turn of the century, and Tom was involved in current, state of the art steam efficiency research, and he had a different set of numbers, of course, because there had been a lot of technological advances in steam. So he presented the current up to date numbers in opposition to what General Motors did. And when he came back to Winston-Salem, just within a couple of months of him going up to that trial and testifying, they passed laws against some of the other research that Tom was doing and put him in jail.
Well, that ended that. Is he out?
He's dead now. But they put him in jail, and he got out, and then they put him in jail again, and when they did that, they put my father in jail with him. And they both got out, but they're both dead now.
Wow.
Why did they put him in jail? What was the...
3,4-methylene dioxyamphetamine hydrochloride.
Gotcha.
It's the same thing, but this root of sassafras right here, if you take the oil of the root of sassafras,
Yeah.
70% saffrol. And if you take that saffrol and treat it to the same process that creates Dutch chocolate, creates 3,4-methylenedioxyamphetamine. Yeah. And they'll put you in jail for that.
Precursor to
Yeah.
ecstasy.
So that's part of our mad scientist stuff.
Yeah. Well, I really do have to go.
Well,
I have to go and
It's been informative. Thanks for coming.
I hope you
Always
enjoyed
entertaining.
the crazy rant today.
It's already happened.
Who did it?
Mine.
When is it?
Mine that I did. I felt like I did a bit of a crazy rant today.
No, you got to work on your
I
crazy.
It's a banal rant.
I was
right?
trying to catch you up on.
You're depressingly sane
Shoot, I knew something was
for a
depressing.
mad scientist. at
I
least.
For a mad
knew
scientist,
something
yeah.
was depressing me, but I didn't think it was that.
Yeah. Gosh, there's plenty to go ranting about. Let's.
Did you have? Did
Shall
you
we
have
go
any tea?
ranting?
Did we offer
No,
you tea? Did you
no.
want tea?
Not tonight, but I'll get some next time. Well, folks, I've enjoyed it. This is Tex Ralph.
This is
Moseying off.
Moseying
Now, if I was
off.
quick, Ralph, I'd be.
I'm here to mug you guys for a little
Wait a
bit.
minute. Are you going to let him have those? Let me have one of those.
Thanks for coming, Ralph. Good to see you.
Thank you guys.
Let's have some.
Hello.
Let's have some interesting visuals while Ralph's gone.
Mickey?
Just
See you
remember
tonight,
one
Rob.
thing,
No, I can't make interesting visuals.
John.
Hmm.
Just remember one thing. Your host can always disappear. See ya.
Bye bye.
We're only light images.
Yeah.
We're not real. Where have you been, my blue-eyed son? Where have you been, my darling young one? Well, I've been across the side of 12 misty mountains. I walked and I've talked across dozens of dead oceans. I've been everywhere and I'll never stop singing. It's a heart. It's a heart. It's a heart. Well, it's a heart. It's a hard rain going on.
Are you going to sing all of it?
I don't know. That's the only verse I know.
There's a lot of verses to that.
That's a great tune.
Yeah,
Where's
you-
Bob Dylan when you need him?
You was talking. You was talking about
We've got-
Vietnam, and I thought that song was talking about Vietnam too.
Yeah.
Did you get that impression?
Yeah.
I did. I definitely got the
Yeah.
impression that was talking about Vietnam from about 2 or 3 different angles all at once.
Yeah. I didn't get when he was there. What year? 70 was a very good year. It's the year I got out. Although it was, like he said, it was beautiful country, beautiful people, and an intense experience. Much nicer, I think, than Iraq. Not as many people.
Do you think that you can look fondly even upon a war when you're young?
I don't know. I think you can look fondly, maybe. I don't know about that. In a way, it relieves the boredom. I mean, if you look at what people's lives are usually like, they're pretty boring, you know. And that's why they get a little bit carried away, I think, with kind of the toys and the guns and things like that. But the suffering was horrendous.
Yeah,
My sister and brother-in-law are very much the Vietnam era. My brother-in-law went to Vietnam. My father was World War II. My mother was World War II. She was an English citizen at the time in London putting out fires. My dad was, stationed in France, but spent a lot of time in England. And I think all of them, both sets of those generations, look back very fondly upon that time, even though it was a war. But I always wondered if there was something peculiar about, something very glamorous or more dramatic or larger than life about the war, if it was just their fondly remembered youth, because both of those sets of people,
I think it's
my
the level of
relatives.
intensity that you live, more so than what the actual. I mean, the war itself, it's a shame that we can't get that level of intensity like we have video games and things like that. The kids are kind of vicariously living a level of intensity that's much more vivid, say, than what's happening. Like my kids going to AB Tech and going to English and going to all that kind of stuff. When I went in the service in '68, I was going to UNCA and working 40 hours a week. So God, man, taking those kind of courses, and it was like a way to check out, and you didn't have to figure it out. Somebody was there telling you what to do and where to go. And I volunteered for Vietnam because I don't know why.
In retrospect,
Because I was up there being bored, doing what I was doing up there, and I thought that it would be. I always thought that it was a great, if understanding suffering, although I'm not sure that that's true, but the Buddhists say it's true. If you have to understand suffering, then Vietnam was a great experience because you get to see a lot of suffering firsthand. And it changed how I thought about things, I was no longer as flippant about the suffering of other beings. I think it did that for me. It didn't do it to a lot of people, but I think they should.
Well, yeah, it makes the reality. It really brings the reality of suffering home when you really see it. It's it's no longer a casual thought. It's like, hey, this is for real, and it needs to be treated like it's for real.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's exactly true.
Do you think you could get the same sort of experience in any third world, very poor, economically challenged country?
Suffering.
Well,
The fright factor really helps a whole lot.
Maybe if
The
terror,
the fear factor, because we're not really afraid very much.
Sheer terror
but when,
makes an impression.
Well, what is the source of the terror other than dying? Is there a greater terror than that?
Well,
it's the point. It's the point going up to dying. It's the scary part.
Yeah.
The dying's not the scary. The actual dying problem. I don't know. That's not what I was.
He hadn't
thinking
done that
about.
one yet,
But
though.
fright, brings it home. I mean,
There's probably something different watching people suffer and starving than actually like getting blown up. There's probably
Yeah,
a
you're not
psychological
threatened.
difference.
Right.
You have no threat just being there and watching them. But if somebody's shelling the area you're in, then you definitely.
or you're thinking about somebody coming in through the wire. That's what
Yeah.
happened when I was there. Right towards the end, there were indications, definite indications that the camp was about to be hit by a force,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And that went on for like a couple of weeks right before I left, and that was.
And you were glad to be gone when you left.
I was crazy by that time.
I bet you were.
That's the time when you really go crazy, when you
Can't-
don't know when it's going to happen.
Can't sleep, can't do anything.
Can't
because
sleep,
you're-
and when you sleep,
yeah.
it's just like
Do you think
sleep.
you can experience, or do you think that some people can experience that level of fear, or even maybe a lesser level of fear for a longer amount of time and get into the same sort of state of confusion? Do you think fear can cause, or constant fear can cause irrational behavior? And
Absolutely.
Look at
Yeah.
most of American
PTSD,
society.
that's-
what I was.
What's
that's what I was
that?
thinking,
I said,
yeah.
look at our society.
Right.
We've been
Right.
like, put under a low-level fear for generations now,
Right.
and that's why we don't stand up to our government. We don't do anything. We're just like,
Not a lot of rational thought going
I
on.
mean, you look
Yeah,
at
it's a
like
shame you can't go through-
Europeans that I meet versus Americans, and the Europeans say the difference between Europeans and American is over in Europe, the governments are afraid of the people, and the U.S., the people are afraid of the government.
Oh, that's profound.
That's right.
It's true.
Yeah, it's a shame we can't go through an intense fright that has no real suffering element to
I
it.
know. That's the
You know,
thing.
that's good. That's good for your body. It wakes it up. Huh?
Roller coasters.
Roller coasters. I know.
They
But,
do.
Extreme
yeah.
sport.
But it's a shame. It's a shame that
Skydiving.
It's a shame that we can't have a revolution, for instance, without suffering. You know what I'm saying? And I hate
Well,
to see it.
we
I hate to
can't.
see the fall of the government and stuff like that, because there'll be people going hungry. There'll be suffering. You see what I mean?
But I mean, you can have the singing revolution that took place in
In the '60s.
no,
What the singing revolution?
Yes, yes.
Uh-huh.
The what?
Singing. Tell them
Singing-
about the singing revolution.
Well, JJ would be the person
Yeah.
to talk about that.
But see, he didn't even know it had happened, right?
Estonia, like 2/3, no, I think it was 1/3 of the country got together and sort of went on strike by just going out in the streets and singing every day, singing patriotic songs, singing popular songs. the whole economy came to a screeching halt, and the Russians were just like, it's not worth it. We're leaving. These people are crazy.
And they
They're
ran the
singing at
Russians
us.
off.
Yeah, and they just left because
They couldn't stand the singing.
Well, yeah.
They were such loud.
can't- you can't-
Maybe
Maybe
those-
were such lousy singers.
Right,
I
maybe they were bad
think that
singers.
might be a part of it, but you can't shoot.
That was a Stonian song, man.
Oh, I'm out of here! I'm out of here! Pull the
It's hard
troops
to
out!
shoot into a crowd of little old ladies who are singing songs,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
singing at you.
I think America
I
probably
bet-
wouldn't have any problem with that.
There's some societies that could do it.
We just need to
I
find a
have
whole
no
lot of
doubt.
people that
I'm
know
just-
the words. Is
Yeah,
what we
right.
need.
I only know one or two verses. I mean,
Yeah,
that couldn't last very long.
I
I'm
know.
just
See,
saying
that
that
last
it's,
song,
you know,
I'm
as
happen
far
to be a
as
big fan of that.
what
Hard,
I'll
was
learn that.
exhausted,
I'll
I
print
think
that out and we'll sing it next
that
time.
hard rain's
Peaceful
gonna
resistance
fall.
we
Yeah,
haven't
I'll
even
sing it.
That's one of his
scratched the
best
surface
songs,
of,
you know
of, of what can be done.
I'll learn all the verses
I
for
don't
next
know.
week. Yeah, that'd be beautiful, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
it
I think
was.
we're ready too.
Peaceful
I think Obama
resistance.
is looking. I mean, people want it and they feel it, whether or not it's happening
I know.
the way we think.
Right.
People want it and they feel it, and
That's right.
and he's kindled a great spirit. You
I
know
know.
that.
Yeah, but now it's not up to the people.
Well, it's
I
up
don't
to
know.
it's up to the people that control the voting machines.
Well, like they
Whoever sets the odds on the voting machines,
well they say that you.
neither of them can get enough delegates at this point. So basically, it's all up to the super delegates now, which basically is like Bill Clinton and a bunch of.
It ain't
people in
over yet.
Congress
This
that
is
are
an
getting a bunch of
interesting
money.
race.
Well,
I love this
honestly,
race.
I think once you get to the point where you say there's no point in voting because it's not up to us, that's when they've won.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like in the primaries right now, there's not enough for them to both get enough delegates at this point. They've both got too many.
Now
They-
you
they
mean from
can't
now
sw-
to the end they
Now
cannot
to the
get enough
end.
delegates?
Yeah. So it's all going to be left up to the super delegates, which are not the super delegates are people that are in Congress or former Democratic presidents. So it's up to people that it has nothing to do with primaries anymore at this point.
Well, a lot can happen.
Ah,
Somebody
you
can
And the
sure?
drop
super
out.
the super delegates can change their minds.
Somebody can drop out. Somebody could.
There's
never know.
nobody's going to drop out.
Nobody's going to drop.
You never know.
No, they'll take it to the convention. I
They'll
hope it
take-
does.
they'll take
I
it
hope
to the
they do.
convention.
And
And then the super
Where
delegates
is
at
the
the last
convention?
minute go. Oh,
let's go to the convention.
yeah.
Let's
Pile
go to
in
the
the car.
convention. Let's go.
Chicago, Abby Hoffman, and the last time. Let's
But
go
the
down
thing
there.
is-
Yeah,
it's
remember
like-
what happened?
it's-
What was it? The Watt Seven? Who were
Chicago
the
Seven?
Chicago Seven?
Abby
w-
Hoffman.
They
Bobby
went to the
Seale.
convention. Yeah. Let's have how about we have the Chicago
Tom Hayden.
7 million?
Yeah.
How about we have the 7 million?
Yeah, I mean, what are they going to do?
But if you've got the people in Congress that are already in there, and they're going to pick the person that's going to have the most power and make them the most money.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
Obama won't stand for
And
that.
plus, Bill.
We know who that's going to be.
Bill Clinton's one of them, so of course he's going to be.
How
Like,
about the Chicago
my
7
wife.
million? Can we have the
Yeah,
Chicago
okay,
7
people.
million?
We line up in the parking lot, and whenever that is, the
You know
convention
what?
is.
Once voting is no longer an option, then people realize that, and then
And
we're,
then
we're
they
not
would-
as controllable
Then they
as we used to.
People
take
are
we
freaked
take to
out
the street
pretty
and
bad
sing,
right
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We take to the street and sing, right?
I don't know. I don't know what we do, but
Yeah.
I think that
Sing, that's right.
in
Right.
order to control the people, you have to either make them think that there's nothing they can do to make any difference whatsoever, or you have to keep some incentive on the table for them to remain passive. And once you take away people's vote, once everybody comes to the conclusion that
Vote is the
nothing-
only choice we have. It's
Yes,
the only
yes,
chance
it
we
is.
have. We don't have